Jacob deGrom, New York Mets. Photo by Elsa. Getty Images. The New York Mets have extended Jacob deGrom and given him a long-term contract. We are still a week away from April Fool's Day, so this is not real. The Mets have done the unthinkable, really. They have agreed to spend a lot of money and have kept their best player happy. The Mets enter 2019 with a plethora of reasons to be optimistic. There are a lot of new faces, and a new front office that seem willing to give New York what it wants more than anything, a team ready to win now. However, the biggest elephant in the room entering the season was Jacob deGrom and whether or not he was going to get an extension before the season started. Justin Verlander did. Chris Sale did. Luis Severino, Aaron Nola, etc. The market for pitching was growing weak and the Mets decided to break their status quo and follow the rest of the league's stats quo to pony up and give deGrom his well-earned money. The contract itself is for 5 years and will pay him $137.5 million. It is a long-term deal and will pay him a lot of money. That is the most blunt way to put him. The deal also comes after deGrom already went through arbitration that would have paid him a handsome sum. Now, that does not matter. This deal will replace his old one, according to Mets.com. There are two sides to everything. The Mets, for sure, did the right thing in extending him and ensuring he is their future. However, he still is years away from free agency and there was no actual rush to extend him other than the deadline his camp imposed this offseason. However, this is a happy day, and a happy deal for all parties involved. Here are my 3 reasons why this contract is awesome for the Mets on the surface. Next, history is astonishingly on their side. Page 2. New York Mets. Jacob deGrom. Photo by Elsa. Getty Images. Perhaps no team in all of Major League Baseball fits all the stereotypes and narratives set for them than the New York Mets. Whether it be proving they are always injured, or having never lost in the division series, or whatever you assume the Mets will do, they almost always do it. History often repeats itself with the Mets more often than not. So, when it was brought to my attention that long contracts given to proven players have actually worked out for the Mets, I was kind of surprised. The Mets have handed deGrom the largest contract in terms of numbers since David Wright's contract given what feels like a decade ago now. It also put deGrom as one of the highest paid Mets players of all time. Largest guaranteed contracts, Mets history, 1. David Wright, $138 million to T. Jacob deGrom, $137.50 mil to T. Johan Santana, $137.50 mil 4. Carlos Beltran, $119 mil 5. Yoenis Cespedes, $110 mil 6. Mike Piazza, $91 mil. Anthony DiComo, at Anthony DiComo, March 26, 2019. First off, I want to make a mini point. If you look at how far back the rest of these contracts are, it is surprising to see how the market has not grown that much the last few seasons. I would have thought that the market for deGrom was much larger. Anyway, looking at all those contracts, it is tough to say they didn't work out for the Mets. Wright still had years left after he signed his and still plays a role on the team. Cespedes carried them to a pennant and a wildcard game. It is not looking hot right now, but he earned his. Mike Piazza is a Mets legend. He too won a pennant. Then Carlos Beltran had one of the most underrated Mets careers of all time. The only outlier is the Johan Santana deal, but even he had a few solid seasons, 46 wins as a Met, and threw the no-hitter, which is a top moment in Mets history. I am sure you owned some form of a Johan shirt that even helped the Mets profit off of that moment. Really, those 5 other contracts worked out for the Mets. They all became major players and at the very least each player provided big moments for the Mets. Injuries and all aside, they all at least helped the Mets win something, outside of Santana. So, giving a contract to one of their best players, at least contracts of that magnitude, hasn't exactly backfired for the Mets. Of course, there are always the Jason Bays and Bobby Bonias of the world, but arguably every team has them. Deal is encouraging based on history. Both deGrom's and the team's history. If history repeats itself, it is at least guaranteed deGrom gives the Mets something, all else aside. Next, good for the rest of the current team. Page 3 Jacob deGrom of the New York Mets. Photo by Jim McIsaac. Getty Images. The deGrom extension quickly becomes a major part in new Mets general manager Brodie Van Wagenen walking the walk when he said he wanted to build a long, sustainable, winning team when he first started. In the simplest form, the Mets are a better team and a part of their future is deGrom. He has literally almost done nothing wrong since he got the call up to the big leagues. So, keeping deGrom all but says that he knows deGrom is a major part of building that culture. But there is even more to it. Look at what the deGrom extension does for someone like Pete Alonso. If he makes the 25-man roster on opening day, the Mets lose that year of control. They are proving that they don't care about being cheap anymore. Paid deGrom, they are going to let Alonso ride it out, all future expenses be damned. It shows that Van Wagenen means it when he says it. He wants the Mets to win. The Mets are going for it now and intend to remain going for it in the future. deGrom getting the deal keeps him happy now while ensuring he is here for the future. It shows they are not worried about Alonso either, because both things help them now. Also, look at the rest of the Mets pitching staff. Noah Syndergaard has been very vocal about his displeasure with the Mets and some stuff lately. Now he can see deGrom getting paid after having a great season to give him even more incentive to do so himself. This could even impact Zach Wheeler too. He is on a walk here. Now the Mets do not have a deGrom value to worry about, they know what it is. The Mets can know exactly what they can and cannot afford to throw at Wheeler, should he impress this season. There are a lot of guys in that clubhouse, at least I would assume, that should be encouraged by this. The GM talked a big game, but he is backing it up. Paying deGrom to be the de facto leader of this team in the process, that's another thing this price tag does. The Mets are the only team in the NL whose leader is the current Cy Young. Next, he's the Mets' best player. Page 4 New York Mets. Jacob deGrom. Photo by Scott Teich. Getty Images. Above all other things about this contract, on top of all the what-ifs, what could-bes, what has-beens, the New York Mets just extended their best player. Yes, that statement is borderline subjective. You could look at all the analytics, pure baseball stats, whatever, and find reasons to argue he is not the best player on this team. That is fine. I, however, simply watch the baseball games. When he is pitching, things feel different, special, like I am watching a game on a national stage. No other player's starts, at-bats, pinch runs, whatever, provide the type of vibe and buzz that deGrom does when he on the bump. This is a franchise that has traded Tom Seaver. This is a franchise that had to deal with Dwight Gooden and all his personal demons. Oh, what could have been. This is a franchise that once had a lucky season from R.A. Dickey in an otherwise lost year where they lost 88 games. This is a franchise that has some of the worst luck mixed in with some odd ownership, to put it nicely. Yes, this franchise might have turned the corner this offseason. Yes, they might be better than they have been. But it is pretty simple right now. At the time that deGrom signed his extension, he did it as the best player on the Mets. He did it as the Cy Young, an award given to him for being the best pitcher in the National League. This is the Mets' money, this is how they are choosing to spend it. You cannot look at this and fault them right now. There might never be a better time to make sure they are keeping their best player. I will fault the Mets for a lot of things. I am just as honest as the next one. However, this was a good decision. This extension could end up righting a lot of franchise wrongs. Or, it could blow up in their face, but isn't it just par for the course at this point anyway? The New York Mets are keeping their best player. They put a price tag on it and got it done. What happens next? None of us know. But they did something that I thought they never really did. They tried. They are trying to keep the fans happy. This is about as bluntly as I could put it. The Mets just signed, and kept happy, the best player on their team. If you don't agree with that, fine. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. But, no matter what happens, deGrom has a chance to be what Gooden never was, a sustainable talent. deGrom has a chance to be what Seaver never was, a Met for life. deGrom already is not what Dickey was, a fluke. If his floor is having this become a bad contract, but his ceiling is all of those things I just listed, I will take that trade-off. I will take that deal, and I would take that deal 100 out of 100 times. The Mets might have just given a 30-year-old pitcher a 5-year contract who is not a natural pitcher, who has previously had Tommy John surgery and was years away from free agency. But they also resigned their best player who has done nothing but prove just how damn good he is each time he takes the mound. Next, grading every position on the Mets' 2019 depth chart. If you choose to emphasize on the former and not the latter, then you will still probably find a way to complain if the Mets win the World Series. That is not something I can help you with. This is a great contract, at a great time, during a great off-season, given to a great player. I couldn't be more excited. I am sure the Mets themselves and other fans are too.